Here at Aycock Media, we offer a place where we can civilly discuss all things political, from national issues to local elections. I'm Phillip Britt.
And I'm Barry Aycock. Welcome to In the Arena.
Today, Barry and I are going to discuss the United States Senate, specifically the United States Senate race in Missouri. But first, let's do a little, here on In the Arena, we like to give a little historical perspective. That's one of the things that kind of makes us unique, I think. For those of you who may not know, the United States Senate is divided into three groups because all 100 senators don't run at one time. It's divided into three groups, and of course, 100 can't be divided equally by three, so one group is 33 senators, the second group's 33 senators, and one's 34. The group that's running this year is Class 3, that's a third group, and there are 34 senators running nationwide this year. Class 1 will then rotate around and be elected in 2024. Class 2 will then be elected in 2026. U.S. Senate terms are 6 years, and so that gives there are a group of senators elected every 2 years. Second, this particular group of senators, Class 3, includes one of the two Missouri U.S. Senate seats. The people we're going to talk about today, Barry, are running to be the 28th person to hold this Senate seat. No women have held this Senate seat. As you know, the other Senate seat, there have been 34 people already hold that Senate seat. People have held the other office longer, I suppose. And two women have held that particular Senate seat. That's the Senate seat that was held by President Harry Truman before he was elected vice president. Those two women are, of course, Claire McCaskill and Jean Carnahan. They were each elected to the United States Senate. But no women have held this particular Senate seat. Although we're going to talk about one today that probably has a really strong chance of winning that election, of a woman who probably will have a strong chance of winning that election. So turning to this specific Senate race, Barry, there are a lot of people in this race. As you know, Roy Blunt's not running for re-election, and so it's a wide open seat. Folks have been lining up since he announced he was not going to run for quite some time. The primary election, which is held August 2nd, has 21 Republicans, 11 Democrats, 1 Libertarian, and 1 Constitutional Party candidate. Let's start with the Democrats. So tell me, who's the front runner for the Democrats this year?
Well, my good friend Scott Sifton has dropped out of the race.
Right.
We got Trudy Bush Valentine, and we got Lucas Kuntz. Right. And he's got a military background. He really looks good on paper. He has a good resume. Mm-hmm. But we've had a late arrival to the race, and it's Trudy Bush Valentine. She's a member of the Anheuser-Busch family. She's going to be a very prolific fundraiser. So it's hard to say who the front runner is because she's just got into the race.
Right. And Lucas Kuntz had raised quite a bit of money before she got into the race. I wonder if that fundraising has kind of slowed down for him since she's gotten into the race.
Well, I think it's definitely put the brakes on his momentum. He was kind of blowing out Scott Sifton. I think Scott Sifton saw the writing on the wall.
Right.
But, a female in a Democratic primary is always very, very hard to beat.
Absolutely.
So it's hard to say who the front runner is right now.
Okay. And she's been a pretty prolific fundraiser for other people, so you're probably right that she'll be able to raise money for herself. Those are really the two only candidates with a real viable shot at winning that primary. Let's look at the Republican side. There are several folks in that Republican race that seem to be at least viable candidates, if not at least well-known candidates. So let's talk about some of those. Who do you think your front runner is on that side?
Well, I think that's the problem with the Democratic candidates. They lack any name ID. Mm-hmm. Most Missourians have heard of Bush,
right?
But they really don't know who Trudy Bush Valentine is.
Sure, right.
But The Republicans should have a lot of name ID. We got former Governor Eric Greitens. We've got Attorney General Eric Schmidt. We got Congressman Billy Long, a very famous auctioneer, I guess, in the area.
Right.
And they're all jockeying for President Trump's endorsement.
And we've got Congresswoman Vicky Hartzler, who actually has gotten the endorsement of the other United States Senator, Josh Hawley. So, yeah, you're right. There's some. They all hope that they will get former President Trump's endorsement. Nobody's gotten that yet. But each one of them has some connection to the president. For example, Eric Greitens has had lots of folks on his campaign that have been working with him or campaigning with him that are connected to the president through his sons or otherwise. Billy Long, I think, immediately hired Kellyanne Conway in the very beginning to be a part of his campaign. And then what we've seen from Eric Schmidt, who I know you have had a long-term relationship and respect for, is that he was fairly moderate, and then now he is extremely conservative. And that happens a lot in these primary races. Folks tend to, on both sides of the aisle, tend to fight for the fringe vote and see if they can get those folks so they can win the primary. Does that hurt them when it comes to general election time?
Well, believe it or not, Philip, I've got a lot of strong opinions about each of these candidates.
Yeah.
And Eric Schmidt, who is near and dear to my heart, we're not best friends or anything, but I do know him. I've met him a few times. What I look for in a candidate is someone who's sincere and who loves people. Well, Eric Schmidt loves people. But the last 2 years, he's went around the state as Attorney General, and his subject and predicate has been, suing schools for mask mandates.
Yeah.
And I think he was catering to the Trump wing of the party, which is very big in the state of Missouri. And I really think that's wasted 2 years of his time. So,
well, and I just noticed, I guess I saw it either last night or this morning in the news that he's now subpoenaing records from schools for surveys that they've done of students, asking about, racism and gender issues. He's playing on that particular issue, and now is subpoenaing records from the schools again. The mask mandates are over, so I guess he had to go after something else. So this is now in the news.
He lost 2 years of campaigning. Like I said, a lot of moderate Republicans, a lot of moderate Democrats would have supported him, but to be honest with you, he's lost his mind. He's not the real Eric Schmidt. That's not the true Eric Schmidt that I once knew.
Right. Well, what about Eric Greitens?
Eric Greitens has had a rough 2 or 3 months. His wife's kind of been after him.
Right.
She's made a lot of allegations. Eric Greitens is a formidable campaigner. He really watches where he goes and campaigns.
Right.
He wants to be the show when he gets there.
Right.
I think he was in Dunklin County recently, and I noticed on Twitter he was the reason that everybody came.
Right.
Well, they were coming whether he was there or not. But, he likes to be the center of attention. What I don't get about all these candidates, Philip, maybe you can answer this question for me, is they all say they're the America First candidate. And that means different things to different people. So what does it mean to you, Philip? What's America First candidate?
It's interesting because, America First is an old phrase. It comes from way back before the World War II. In fact, it was a buzzword for isolationism. We wanted to isolate ourselves and stay out of the war. And that was, and I'm not really sure that that's not what people think in certain areas. That we can do everything right here. We don't need anybody else in the world. The reality is that this is a global economy. We've seen that from gas prices that have gone through the roof, but it's not it's not something that's isolated to America. And if we isolate ourselves from the rest of the world, that's not going to change that, because oil's still bought on the global market, and the cost of gas is related to that. So I think that isolating ourselves is maybe one of the things that they're talking about. I think there's also this concern, and it comes from an evangelical place of a world order or a world government. There's some I suppose, some folks who can interpret revelations to say that there's got to be this world government before the end of time, and everybody's looking at the end of time. I wish they'd look at how people are going to actually feed themselves and put gas in their car and worry more about that than some biblical Armageddon. Because and if we do that, we can't afford as a country to isolate ourselves. We saw that with the last administration. President Trump tended to isolate us a lot more, and we, in fact, probably insulted a few of our allies and actually lost some standing in the world. So I don't know. I mean, they all are. President Trump has made that a popular sentiment, and continues to trumpet that every place he goes. He's not been here to support any of these candidates. My guess is that he'll wait until after the primary to come to Missouri if he needs to. The reality is that more than likely one of these people that we're talking about right now, the Republican candidates, is going to come out of the primary as the clear front runner. That's just the way Missouri's been over the last decade or close to 20 years now. And so I think that's kind of where we're at. Billy Long has been a huge proponent of the president and a huge supporter of the president from the very beginning. You're right, he's an auctioneer. Kind of made his name a little bit at one point where there was a person trying to interrupt a congressional hearing, and then he did a mock auction of the reporter's or of the person's phone, and basically shouted her down until security was able to escort her out of the room. It's kind of funny, but yeah, he's an interesting character. I think real boisterous, he was a radio talk show host as well as an auctioneer before, but I really don't think he's going to end up being much of I think he may be the fourth person in this race, really. I think it's going to come down to Eric Schmidt, Eric Greitens, and Vicky Hartzler.
And I'm glad you brought that up. Just before we come on the air, I saw a new Real Clear Politics poll, and I believe Greitens is up 3. He's the clear front runner. Like I said, he's had some rough patches the last 2 or 3 months, but he has seemed to weather the storm.
Seems to.
He's got 9 lives.
Well, and I honestly thought when he left the governor's office, in disgrace, as everyone refers to him when they talk about him, at least certain outlets do, disgraced former governor. When he left the governor's office, I thought he was probably done. I didn't expect to see him come back. I expected to see him on Fox News or someplace like that, making a whole lot more money, but that's not where he landed. I mean, he's continued to proclaim his innocence and proclaim that that it was all a political witch hunt, even to the point of forcing the St. Louis City prosecutor to go before the Supreme Court for a bar review issue. And so, that's been a real, for him, it's been a real good talking point that, they were out to get me. And the only way for you to defeat them is for you to elect me again and show them that I'm the guy. So that amazingly puts him out in front again. I knew a little bit about Eric Greitens before he jumped into the governor's race 4 years ago. I work at Boise State in the summer. In fact, I'm going to be there next week. But I had talked to him several times. He was always our Friday night, send those guys home, fired up, ready to be good citizens and be involved in their communities. Was just great at that. He's a great speaker, a very engaging person. Again, had a great resume and it worked for him. But he came in almost like 4 years ago, almost like Donald Trump did. There was a group of folks who were kind of the establishment candidates. Catherine Hanaway and Peter Kinder and some of those folks that people knew and had been part of politics for a long time. And then he stepped in as the outsider candidate. It's hard to say he's the outsider candidate still, but it still feels like he is. And he's still painting himself as that. And again, he's going up against several establishment candidates. You know, sitting Congress people, a sitting state senator. The only one that's kind of an outlier, that's even more of an outlier than him, is Mark McCloskey, the attorney from St. Louis who is only famous because he held a gun on Black Lives Matter folks walking down the street in front of his house. And so I think, you know, I don't think makes a difference in this race. But the one we haven't talked much about is Vicky Hartzler. What do you think about her?
Well, Vicky has a big following in the ag community here in Southeast Missouri. I don't know how she's resonating in other places. She's been steady in her polling, but the ag community in Southeast Missouri, it seems, has rallied around her. I know lots of farmers are for her, but Vicky, she can pull this off. There's 3 or 4 candidates who can pull this off.
Right.
It's such a crowded field. One thing I do know, if Eric Greitens does pull this out, there's several Republicans who won't vote for Eric Greitens.
Right.
Several moderate female Democrats and Republicans who won't vote for Eric Greitens.
Right.
So the Republican Party's got a problem here. They've got a big decision to make. Really the big losers of this whole ordeal, this what we call the U.S. Senate race, is the Missouri voter right now, because if you look at their Twitter feeds, if you look at any of their social media, they're all catering to Donald Trump right now. They're not catering to the problems we have here in Missouri. Eric Greitens, if you look on his social media, he's trying to appease Donald Trump.
Yeah.
Eric Schmidt's lost his mind. He's trying to appease Donald Trump. Eric Schmidt would have run away with this because of his name ID and just being a sincere, moderate Republican. He would have got lots of Democratic votes. He's fighting for his life right now, but he's still in the race.
I agree.
Matter of fact, he's trending upwards right now. Vicky Hartzler may be trending down a little bit. Somebody's going to have to capture the momentum here in the last 60 days.
Well, and that's, you know, I think Vicky Hartzler, you know, one of the things that you always fear as a candidate is peaking too soon. And I think with Josh Hawley's endorsement and all those things, I think she was trying to get some folks out of the race. I think that's why she was pushing that early on. But I think she's in that place where she may have plateaued at this point, unless she can come up with something you know, pretty exciting and to move the needle a little bit. She may have plateaued and she may get passed up again. So
it would really help a lot of these candidates to really start talking about the issues that are important in everyday lives of Missourians.
Right, absolutely. And talking about them in a way that how do we fix that? You know, not just passing blame to the current administration or to the current Congress that is currently in the hands of the Democrats. If they would actually talk about how do we fix that then? How do we fix, you know, $5 gas? How do we fix, you know, the shortages in food and the things that we're looking at? But you don't hear a lot of that. You hear a lot about transgender athletes. You hear a lot about you know, the things that they're like buzzwords and things that can get a few people excited. But is that what I expect that's what they want to get their people out to the polls in August, and that's how they're going to do it.
Well, you know, Vicky Hartzler's first ad here in Southeast Missouri was the transgender swimmer.
Right.
Now, there's not a lot of those in Parma, Missouri, or Risco, Missouri, or Dexter, Missouri.
Right.
I mean, I happen to agree with her on that. Men don't need to be participating in female sports and vice versa, but that's just not. That's 0.00001% of the issue here in Southeast Missouri.
Right.
We need to be talking about the real issues, and I think that's a good time to invite each and every one of them on this show.
Absolutely. We would love to have any of them come.
To talk about the issues, not about any past scandals.
Sure.
Talk about the issues that are important to everyday Missourians.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So, you know, we'll reach out to as many of those as we can over the next couple of months before the primary, and hopefully have them in to talk with us about the issues and about why they're the best candidate.
I really want to know what this America First stuff is.
And that would be great to ask them.
I mean, it's one thing Donald Trump, I agreed with him on. One of the very few things is we don't make anything here in our country anymore.
Right.
But you know, we have this chip problem with the vehicles, refrigerators. Why aren't we making chips here? Why isn't anybody talking about that?
Right.
To me, that's America first, making products right here in our country.
Yep.
Nobody's talking about that, though. You gave me a new twist on America first I wasn't even thinking of.
Yeah.
Most Republicans probably are thinking about military. They're not thinking about making products here in the U.S., right?
Yeah, that's exactly right. Yeah. So, well, you know, we'll be back talking about this more probably after the primary as we see things shaping up, unless we can get one of these candidates to come and talk with us, or multiple candidates to come and talk to us.
They don't need to be afraid. It's about the issues. It's about the people, right?
Absolutely. That's what we want to talk to them about.
So Phillip, I'm going to pin you down today. It's, what is it, June the 9th, June the 10th?
Yep.
If you had to pick the winner today, who would it be?
If I had to choose the winner today, knowing the climate in Missouri, I would say it will be Trudy Bush Valentine on the Democratic side and Eric Greitens on the Republican side.
I agree.
All right, well, that's our take on it. You know, again, it's when we're recording this, you may see it later, but it's a couple months before the election. We'd love to have any of these candidates come and see us and come and talk with us about, you know, why they're the number one candidate, why they should be the one folks vote for, and what the issues are. But, you know, we like to talk about politics. We hope you like to listen to politics once in a while. Thank you for joining us. Until next time, I'm Phillip Britt.
I'm Barry Aycock.
And we've been in the arena.